Hello everyone. Yeah, we've had a couple of questions in from Iwfan53. Thanks for all the awesome short stories, by the way. And he basically's got two pretty big questions, and the first one is, in effect, which of the Reynard City Chronicles issues is your favourite? And we'll get to the second one. The favourite one, it's tricky because that is a bit like saying, what is your favourite child? Sorry, who is your favourite child? Not what is your favourite child. You know, the gremlin is equal to all my other children. Yeah, the ones I know about. It's tricky. I mean, the first one, I think, has a very special place in my heart because it was the relaunch one, because of the amazing relaunch party we had with Baobab Marketing. So yeah, so there's definitely that. I mean, like I say, I was really chuffed with, let's say with 5 and 6. I think Ellie did some great comics there. I think, Blue Lights work on the finale. It's really hard because I think everyone has worked so hard on the comic, and I think they all deserve a lot of credit for it. Like I said, I think there are certain ones where I've got kind of, sort of personal bias. So, for example, with issue 2, I think the tie-in with the voice acting in Haley's edit on the trailer, I just think is absolutely amazing. And so, there's a bit of additional bias there, I suppose. But yeah, like I said, very hard to sort of divvy them up. On the flip side of that, we also have this next question from Iwfan53, which is, if you could go back and change any story beats from the series, what would you do? And I think he's trying to sort of lead me to a specific point, which is fair. I think there are certain things like, oh, could you have done this plot point stronger, or could you have done that plot point stronger? And I think that's a fair question. I think, to be honest, it's difficult because we spent a long time getting to this point, and I think, to be honest, we worked very hard to get this out, to get it to get it ready for this month, to get it out for Norcon. And I think it's tricky, and I don't want to sound condescending, but I do think you do have to be a bit careful, because sometimes you can get a little bit like laser focused. So there's a really good creative writing book that I studied as part of my degree called Writing Down the Bones by Natalie Goldberg, and she uses this phrase, don't marry the fly. And what that basically means is that, yes, description is important, yes, kind of what you're getting down is important, but if you're not careful, and I've been guilty of this myself, so I'm not saying this to have a dig at anyone, but it is easy to get bogged down with details. It is easy to say, like, oh, how does this work, how does that work? And I think, for me personally, having done this for a while, I would say, yes, get as many of those details right as you can. I'm not saying you don't. But I would also say, I think pacing is important. I think, especially when you consider, like in our case, when it's a collaborative thing, you do have to kind of keep in mind, there's only so much time, there's only so much, like, things have to get out there, I think, and sometimes that will mean it won't be perfect going out the gate, and I do think sometimes you do have to have trade-offs, and I think it's different, I think, when you've got a project on your own, because you can sort of do it more to your own time, but even then, I would recommend to people, have deadlines, stick to it, because the danger is that you start going down like the George Lucas Ridley Scott thing, and like you're forever tinkering with the same thing, and at some point it's got to go out there. And I just think at some point just let it be a thing, because the other thing that I've learned as well, again, strangely enough, tying into the first question, is what sometimes what you think is like a quote unquote worse style or a worse thing. They're all people who will love that style, and this is something I found out. In much the same way as there are people who sort of you create a certain character, and it's not that you don't think any more of it, but like there's a cult towards that character in a way. You're like, okay, I don't control that, and I'm also not mad about it. I mean, we also had that with the whole Queen Vibes thing, which was really cool, where people kind of picked up on an image that El Bunny produced and kind of ran with it, and that was really cool, and I love that, and I think that's important, and I think the imagination and that aspect of it is so important. So anyway, this was just a quick video, but if you have any questions, please feel free to comment below. The only thing I will ask, if it's a spoiler question, please put spoiler question in big capital letters before you write the spoiler question, so that people can avoid it if they want to read the comic, because I think it's really important that we play fair and let people who haven't read the comic enjoy it, especially with like the bigger plot points. Alright, much love. Bye.